ladies and gentlemen, in the blue corner, standing at a sleek 5'11", 245 pounds, the tumultuous tempest of technique, Thomas Lilley. And in the red corner, at a curvaceous 5'11", 315 pounds, the jovial juggernaut of judgment, John Sheridan. A meeting of the masters of mastication. Turn your attention as they delve deep into all things lifting and more. This is Peak Speak.
Welcome back to Peak Speak, our podcast on powerlifting and powerlifting.
We prefer to go deep on one subject rather than broad on many.
That's right. We are talking about business, gym ownership, and the perils of it. No, not the perils. But I think it's an interesting subject to bring up, an interesting subject to talk on, because I feel like a lot of people have this pipe dream of owning their own gym. Both you and I probably fell into that category at some point because we ended up opening our own gyms. And here we are, so we have a relevant voice to speak on the subject. What's happening in the land of Burleigh at the moment?
Not a shitload out of the ordinary, man. We've got our first comp coming up on Feb 17, which is almost sold out, which is great. And yeah, that's going to be our first comp of the year, but also the first one with the MX division for transgender and non-binary lifters, which is going to be really cool. I've had some discussions with a few people from interstate who are coming to compete, a few people who've been exposed to powerlifting for the first time through this discussion and are going to step up and compete as well, which is really cool because for me, that's what this is all about, is exposing the sport to a group of people that maybe haven't had an opportunity to compete in a sport like powerlifting or a sport in general because of societal norms and those sort of things. So I think it's going to be really great. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a long day, but they're always fun. And yeah,
that's really cool.
Good. So I think that's...
Will Brisket and Braun be there?
Not for this comp. He's coming down for ACT States. I am currently trying to find alternative food source, but am somewhat limited in my choices at this point.
Can we make some sort of a online petition to have Stefan come down for that comp?
I'm
coming down for that
comp. I think we've got enough political sway in the powerlifting arena that we can probably bully him into coming down for us. He's also gotten into competitive barbecue lately, which might mean he's got more important things to do than come and sell brisket to a bunch of meatheads. But
yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Brisket and Braun, Stefan Passati, really, really cool guy out of Sydney that cooks some amazing barbecue. He's also really fucking strong.
Yes, strong dude who cooks good meat. That's all you can want in a man. Or a woman, for that matter.
That's right.
So yeah, that's what's happening in Burleigh. How's life at Ground Zero?
Ground Zero is very good. We have our first comp on this weekend. We are running GPC Nationals qualifier. This will be the first comp in the new location.
Shit, yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how that goes down. We got a whole bunch of new signage the other day.
Yeah, man, I saw that. It all looks schmick.
Yeah, it's like going to a new location, running the comp for the first time. You still have a few little teething issues working out exactly what works and what doesn't and how to set it all up. So this is like the flagship, and then we've got a novice comp Feb 10 and then another comp on Feb 23rd. So nice. This will help us decide how we're going to run everything.
Yeah, and help you iron out those kinks. And like you said, and I think we can touch on that as part of discussing owning a gym, because I think that's obviously certainly from my perspective, comps are a significant portion of our income, and so how we run those events is definitely worth talking about. But rather than diving straight into that end of things, why don't we start with a bit of a discussion about how we got to where we are today in terms of owning a gym, and sort of we can outline that process and talk about things as they come up as we go through.
You want me to start?
Yeah, why don't you start? I don't know.
Was that your polite way of saying you go
Well,
first?
yeah, basically.
It's funny. I reflect back to when I first joined a gym. I joined Lifestyle Health Clubs in Springwood. I was 15, 16. I think I was 16. And I remember going to that gym for a year or two first and thinking, fuck, it would be so cool to have a gym where, you know, you come along and you can't join the gym without someone taking you through exactly how you should do things, show you how you should lift, how you should train, help you out with programming. I remember thinking that and thinking one day I'm going to own a gym and I'm going to live in the gym and my life is going to be the gym. And I never really pursued that, you know. I went to uni, I started a career, all that sort of stuff. And somehow I've ended up down that path anyway. It's just funny to look back and think that's what I was thinking. And maybe that seed that was planted stayed dormant and eventually got watered. I wasn't doing training in a gym and thinking, I really want to open a gym. Like it wasn't at the forefront of my brain when I decided to open PTC Gold Coast. What had happened was I was working for the government. The government changed and they started to go around and basically cull what my profession was. So I was in community nutrition. There were about 170 positions in the state. They cut that down to eventually be 14.
Yeah,
which,
wow.
funnily enough, the position I was in actually survived. But with that kind of looming, that possibility looming, I thought, well, you know, I was offered a job, but it was regional. It was in Roma, which is 6-7 hours west of Brisbane in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
Like if I pack up and move my whole life over there, there's a very likely chance that position is just going to get abolished anyway. So do I want to take that risk or do I want to do something else? I was like, well, I want to do something else. And I'm pretty impulsive. First thought that came to my head was open a powerlifting gym, and that's what I did.
Yeah, nice.
So I'd love to say I was, planning it for years and thinking meticulously of how it should have gone down, but like most of the decisions I make, it was just like, yep, I'm going to do this, so I went and did it.
When was that? So give us a bit of a timeline, just so we've got a bit of perspective from it.
Yeah, so this is 2012.
Okay.
2012. So the government switched about August 2012. I think I got offered the position in September and then decided around that time. I think I sort of made the decision in August. There's a post that I have saved on my phone from Facebook where I had put a call out who would be interested in a powerlifting strength gym in this area.
Yeah.
Then started getting in talks with Marcus, with Scott, with Dan Rucci and Paul Rucci over in Perth. All the current PTC owners, there was a bit of a vetting process you had to go through and talk to everyone before you were allowed to open one. So I started doing that, started putting the feelers out. And yeah, it was all good to go. And I opened the doors on November 10th was the open day. November 12th was the first day of business in 2012. So just over 6 years ago.
Nice.
Yeah, and since then we started in a very small shed. We've moved twice, and we're now in quite a big place. And
when you say small versus big, can you give us sizes? Because I think for some people that'll make things slightly more relevant.
Yeah, I mean, my gym is not that big at the moment. So I've been to gyms around the country that are much bigger than mine in terms of like independent strength sort of gyms. The first place I had was 198 square meters total, but it had some useless space. It had a bit of useless office space. It had a toilet block, which was pretty big. So it was probably about 140 usable square meters of gym space. It was laid out a little bit funny. Then we moved into a retail space in 2015, and that was 303 square meters. But again, there's probably only maybe 170 meters of usable floor space for the first half that I was there. Then I did some renovations and opened it up a little bit more.
Yeah.
And now we've moved into a place that's 370 square meters. And there's probably just over 200 meters of usable gym floor space. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah. And I foresee myself staying in where we are for a while, just because the nature of my gym is that I want to keep it very community based. My bread and butter really is what I do online.
Yeah.
The gym is more of a community. I don't really do any marketing for the gym. Uh, we'll talk about that as we get into things a little bit more. But at the moment, it's very niche, and the community is so cool, and I don't want to impede on that at the moment. But yeah, we'll discuss that as we go through.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I guess that's me. What about you? When did it all start?
So I took a slightly different approach to you. I've never really had a career outside of this. I sort of got into powerlifting and stuff around 2009-10, started competing. I started working as a personal trainer in, it would have been the end of 2012, start of 2013. I was doing a traineeship and being paid apprentice wages and teaching fully qualified staff members how to lift weights because they actually had no experience. I did that for a while. I sort of bounced between a couple of jobs because I didn't really fit a lot of people's personal trainer mold, surprisingly. And then towards the end of 2013, I was approached by... Did you just headbutt your own microphone? That was impressive.
Yes, a little bit.
Excellent. In end of 2013, or towards the end of 2013, I was approached by Trent Nguyen, who at the time owned PTC Sydney. He approached me with a proposal to open a PTC in Canberra, and he essentially wanted me to run it for him because obviously he lives in Sydney. So I, at that point, had probably been thinking about owning a gym for a while. The first sort of strength training powerlifting gym that I was a part of was called Power Sports Club in Canberra. And I was one of the sort of first people through that door because it was one of the first real garage warehouse style community gyms in Canberra that specialized in strength and that sort of aspect of things. So that's where I was training at the time. I was doing a little bit of PT stuff out of there. And Trent approached me with that as a proposal. And so we looked at opening a gym. We looked at a bunch of spaces, and we actually ended up having a discussion with the guy who owned Power Sports Club at that point. And we essentially ended up buying them out. So we bought a bunch of their equipment. We got rid of some of it and upgraded some of it and added some other stuff. And then essentially we just took over the lease there. So it was a really sort of... For me, it was really nice to see the gym that I loved at the time become the gym that I was managing, essentially. Trent was really good as a boss because he let me do my thing. He essentially just had faith in my vision and let me build it. And so for all intents and purposes at the time, I felt like I owned the gym. Obviously I didn't, but I got paid to run it. And I put my heart and soul into it because I told Trent from very, very early on, at some point in my life, I was going to buy him out and own it. At the time, I just didn't feel like I was in the financial position to do that. We spent sort of 2 years as PTC Canberra. About 18 months into that, Trent sort of expressed his desire to get out at the end of the 2-year lease that we'd signed. So I told him in no uncertain terms that I'd buy everything and he wasn't to talk to anyone else about this because I was going to do it. And I told him that before I had this discussion with my girlfriend, which perhaps was not the most logical way to go about things. But to be honest, I'm glad. And in both instances, in saying yes to Trent and initially and then saying, yes, we'll buy it, I don't regret those decisions. I don't regret not talking to my girlfriend about it. I, like you, am a fairly impulsive person, and I trusted my gut and I went with that. And I think if I'd hesitated, it would have been much harder to commit to it. And I think that's a really important discussion to have, is this idea that this is fucking hard work, man. It's risky. There's not necessarily a ton of money in it, at least in the ways that we're doing it, where it's about having this community, right? So so I said yes to Trent, and we hastily organized finances and stuff like that. And I essentially, rather than buying the business, I just bought the equipment and decided at that point I wanted to rebrand as something of my own, rather than staying as part of the PTC family. I still love all of those guys, and I got a heap of support from everyone in that family initially. But for me, it was about identifying it as my own and it becoming my thing. And yeah, so that became Burley Strength. So we officially took over 2016, started 2016. And in that time, from sort of it was like November, December 2013 through to the end of 2015 at PTC, we were in the one location in a warehouse in Fishwick in Canberra. It was 200 square meters total. Again, maybe like 170 square meters of space. We moved out of there as Burley Strength so we started there as Burley Strength from the 1st of January 2016. But we moved from there to our current location in September 2016. And that's kind of when I really consider it to be the birth of Burley. Like that first 7-8 months was a growing period, and it was me learning everything that's involved in owning a gym and sort of realizing the scope of what I was doing. But I feel like we really came into our own as a business, as a gym, as a community when we moved to the bigger space. So we're now in 450 square meters. We have, I haven't done the measurements, but it'd be sort of in the mid 300s in terms of usable space. We've got what I consider to be a pretty good setup in terms of layout and stuff like that. Because comps were a part of what we were doing, I was very deliberate in how we arranged the gym early on to avoid having to move monoliths and essentially rearrange the whole gym.
Pain in the ass,
dude. It's the fucking worst. So by the time we moved out of Kembla Street, there, our original location, it was like 200 square meters, and it was fucking rammed, dude. Like we had 2 monos, we had 4 benches, like 3 deadlift platforms, and a bunch of other shit that we'd stuffed in that you couldn't move. Like with 20 people in there, it felt like there was 100 people in there. And I actually was a bit worried when we first moved in. Like I was sitting in the warehouse a couple of nights before we moved to our current spot. And I remember sitting there thinking, fuck, this is a really big warehouse. I feel like we're going to barely fill it and it's going to feel big and empty, and I'm a little bit worried about that. And then a couple of days later, we moved all the equipment. I was like, oh, no, that's right. We've got heaps of stuff. And actually, we really did a great job of filling this whole place out. So, yeah, man, we've been here since 2016, as I said, September. So a bit over 2 years now. I've owned the gym now for 3 years. And yeah, that's sort of how we got to today.
Yeah, sounds good. So one thing that you touched on there was like you moved into this new location, and that's when you felt like you became a real business owner, right? Because I don't know about you, but I wouldn't say that I'm naturally a businessman. I'm definitely not a businessman. I'm a fucking worker, right?
Yeah,
I'll work. I'll do tasks until I'm dead. You give me something to do, and I'll fucking do it. But I'm not a businessman naturally. That's been something that's had to be learned.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with that. I think in hindsight, through my sort of teens and early 20s, I was never very good with authority. So I've never, I don't think, been the most useful worker because I'm not very good at taking direction from people I don't respect. Especially direction that I think is dumb. So I think that element of owning a business has definitely come more naturally to me. But in terms of, like, I've never owned a business before this. I've never really worked in a micro business like, you know, what we are. My parents owned a business for a while, but it was very different. They were a nursing contracting company for defense, so that was a much bigger scale. You know, we run on one government contract. It's not quite the same as a general public business sort of thing. So I had some exposure to business through that, but beyond that, I would never have considered myself a business person. I still do not consider myself an entrepreneur, and I fucking hate people that use that term when all you do is own a gym. Like, my understanding of being an entrepreneur, if you're an entrepreneur, you open a business, you start a business to solve a problem, and then when you get to a point where that business is profitable, you sell it and you move on to the next thing.
That's right.
For me, I own a business, but I am not an entrepreneur. I'm someone who is passionate about the business that I own and will continue to be passionate about it for the foreseeable future. But I am in no uncertain terms an entrepreneur.
I think I'd probably err towards that side a little bit more. Like I said, I'm not a businessman. That's just because I don't have the business skills, but I'm definitely a big ideas sort of person.
Yeah.
But without the business skill, it's a dead-end street. And I think that's really the heart of this discussion is defining the difference between working and owning a business. Because the reason this kind of came to mind is I talk to so many people. I'm always surprised by how many people I talk to who are like, hey, I'm thinking of opening a gym. Can you tell me a little bit more about your experience? And it's like, you get these successful trainers and the natural progression is, hey, I want to open a gym. I'm like, think about what you're actually saying. You're saying you want to go from having costs of gym rent and maybe like some petrol and uniform stuff, like outgoings of a couple of hundreds of dollars a week, to taking on board a complete business, going from having a job and going home to having a business where you're working all the time without the skill to do that. It's like, you think about your first job. Most people go and work in like some sort of hospitality job. I worked at KFC. So I think about working at KFC.
Coles.
Yeah, so you think about working at Coles or working at KFC. You go to do the checkout. You go to clean something. There's procedures for everything, right? There's standards set in place. There's systems for everything in that place. You go from working in that environment to owning that environment. Now you're the person who has to create all those systems. You think of all the stuff that just happens autonomously, all the bins getting emptied. You think of cleaners coming through the place. You think of all the stuff that happens. You have to now arrange all that stuff. You think about you working behind the counter. The customers come and pay you or pay the business, and you're just facilitating that. Well, now you're the business owner. You have to find the customers to come to the business. They're not just going to flock in because you've opened the doors. That's not quite how it works. So it's like owning a business and working are two very, very different things. And especially in this sort of environment where if you go out on a limb and you open a gym, if you're an individual, you're probably not going to open like a world's gym with 200 pieces of brand new commercial equipment. You're going to be in a little shed. How are you going to compete with those kind of environments? How are you going to compete with the buy power that they have to have staff to do all those little menial tasks? No. You're going to be the head honcho and you're going to do everything, right? On top of that, if you're a successful trainer of some sort and you're bringing all your clients into that environment, on top of all the administration, all the little things that you have to now run, you also have to do all the work that you were doing before. So the natural progression isn't to open a gym. That's a massive regression because now you've doubled your work and doubled your expenses as well.
And probably a third of the profit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, like you said, it seems like the natural progression for a lot of people, but it's the difference between being I can't remember who brought this concept to my attention, but it's the difference in being a technician. Maybe it was Dave Tate, actually. Being a technician.
Yeah, it's from a book called The E-Myth.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's E-Myth. Yeah, E-Myth Revisited. A very good book, but it's the difference between being a technician and an owner. Like when you're and this is especially relevant in the fitness industry, if you're a coach and the thing that really fucking lights your fire is spending time one-on-one with people or spending time in a group with people or however you prefer to do it, spending time coaching people online, if that really lights your fire, opening a gym might not be the best option for you because like you said, Thomas, you're going to have to do less of that. Like first and foremost, I am a business owner. I own a gym. Second to that, I am a coach. Because without the gym, I don't have the facility to do the coaching that I love to do. Because I really enjoy the one-on-one in-person stuff. Like I enjoy being surrounded by a group of good people. I enjoy being in the room. I do all that. And I enjoy the online stuff just as much, or maybe not just as much, but I certainly still enjoy that. But for me, I've always enjoyed the idea of a gym, like an actual in-person location. That's the thing that I like. And yeah, you end up doing less coaching. You end up having so many more stresses, and it's a job that never stops. Like that's the thing for me that a lot of people don't understand. And like, my family still don't understand this. I've got two younger brothers, so I'm the oldest of three, and both my parents are public servants. My youngest brother's a public servant, and my middle brother's a carpenter. And so I'm the one like the odd one, right? Because I don't have a real job. I have this job where like I go to work from 5:30 till 8 in the morning, and then I don't have to go back to work from 4 till 8. And the assumption in my family is I just go home and sleep and fuck about and play PlayStation. It's like, well, no, I go home and I eat breakfast and I work. Like there's always something to be done. You know, I've spent the last week and a half of the first part of the year just fucking writing a list of things I need to do. And the list is like 4 A4 pages long at this point, because every time an idea or something I think I need to work on pops into my head, I write it on the list. And it just never fucking ends. And this isn't me complaining about this, because I chose this. I went down this path and I accept that as part of my journey. I don't like complaining about it. I don't like glorifying it either. Like, oh, the fucking grind, 24/7 hustle, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think that's bullshit too. If you ever see me use the hashtag hustle, it's probably because I'm taking the piss.
Exactly.
And like for me, it's not a grind necessarily. Like in parts it is, but it's not a grind because I love what I do, man. And Jordan and I spoke about this in the discussion we had. Like, people talk about it being dedicated, right? You're so dedicated. Well, it's not really dedication, because I enjoy doing this. You know, like the thing for me that stands out in emphasizing how happy I am with where I am right now is that if I won last night's $100 million Powerball jackpot and I had enough money that I never had to work again, I'd still own a gym. And I'd still turn up most days of the week, and I'd still be pushing to make it better and improve upon it, because I fucking love it. And I think if you, like, I'm very fortunate that at 30 I've spent the last 5 years in a job that I love and have turned it into a career. But it's not easy, and it's not just an upgrade of I'm coaching these people and then we just get our own space and it's better because I make more money. Like you said, there's so much more that goes into that, and I think no one talks, or not enough people talk about this, especially in the environment, the gym environment in Australia, where it's like we're still at the peak of the boom, right? You and I have both been involved in powerlifting long enough to watch this sport grow from nothing, and so everyone wants to be part of it. It's the cool thing to do, but I think we're probably going to see over the next 5 years a bunch of these gyms that close down because people opened it as a hobby. You know,
I mean, we're already seeing it happen.
Exactly. And unlike you, I don't have a career outside of this. This is it. I don't have a plan B. So for me, this is going to work because it has to. Because I want it to, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make it work. And I'm by no means perfect. I am certainly not, like, I don't consider myself a particularly good business owner. I'm trying, and I'm trying to learn, and I'm trying to be better. And I have good days and bad days, and good weeks and bad weeks, but I fucking love the process.
That's right.
And if you're not ready for that, it's going to be a fucking huge slap in the face, and potentially a very, very expensive mistake.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, like that idea of just fucking working, it's that's the heart and soul of this. That's the heart of soul into going into business, is that you're going to have to work your ass off. And for you and I, who didn't come into it with a lot of business skills, there's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of figuring out along the way. I mean, we've gotten good guidance. I know the kind of people that you've spoken to and I've spoken to over the years, and we've got good guidance as we well. But if I look at them side by side, I look at someone like, for example, Ruchi's gym in Perth, right? These guys opened a gym with business skills.
Yes.
So these guys already understood business, and look how fucking successful that gym is, because 100%. They knew business from the start. Yep. We've learned that over time, and now our gym's successful. I'd consider your gym very successful. I consider my gym successful. But people look at that and they're like, successful gym, if these plebs can do it, then I can do it. It's like, well...
Plebs being the operative word in that sentence.
Yes, sorry about that. This is something that I very, very rarely tell anyone, because I don't wear it as a badge of honor. If anything, this is like, okay, well, this has had to be my learning curve, and like you said, this has been my choice. But let me talk about my journey in terms of what work I've actually done. Right. So I've never taken a loan for my gym. You look at my gym, I've got fucking 3 monoliths, I've got Eleiko everywhere, I've got probably among the most calibrated gym in the country in terms of plates and bars and all that sort of stuff. Well, actually, there's no such thing as a calibrated bar. Never mind. But you know, if I've probably got I would deem my gym as one of the best equipped powerlifting gyms in the country. I'm not ashamed to say that,
Yep,
and I'm not bragging when I say that.
I'd put you on the same plane as well.
Yeah, that's just the reality. Sorry, one sec. The camera's still recording. Okay, we're back.
Hashtag professional.
That's right, and that's just this. It's not a video camera; it's a photo camera, so it just cuts out every 20 minutes. Anyway, what I was saying, this is my journey of work, right? So I opened the gym with 2 squat stands, 2 shitty Force USA $100 benches, 16 rubber mats, a bunch of shitty Heart Sport plates, and not a lot else. Some homemade dip bars, 2 power racks, 1 power rack that I already had, 1 that came with the PTC name, a GHR. That's it. That's what I opened the gym with. That's what I opened the doors with. I have fluked my way over the last 6 years to have the gym that I have. Because you imagine now, if you opened that and called it a gym, no one would come.
Yeah, dude, the barrier to entry is so much higher now.
So I opened like that. The first year that I had the gym, I got up every morning at 4:30, went to a job driving a forklift that I did through uni, and treated like the lowest of the low, because here all of a sudden I was in a highly educated career. Now I'm in the lowest rung of a big company driving a forklift, treated like I'm a fucking idiot, which is, I actually quite like that job. But anyway, I worked that every day.
I've seen you drive. I wouldn't want to see you on a fucking forklift.
5 a.m. till 2 p.m., straight to the gym, 3 p.m. till 9 p.m. Did that for a year, right? Then I had this little period of time where I was just opening the gym 3 till 9, and it was kind of blissful, I was pretty much just playing Xbox in the morning, then going to the gym 3 till 9. Making a little bit of money. I wasn't making good money, but the gym was self-sufficient, had a little bit of growth. Then in 2014, I took a contract with the government again because I wanted to start making more upgrades in the gym. I wanted more money, and that opportunity came up. The money was fantastic, so I took that. So then I was working in the mornings again, doing community nutrition work in the mornings, going to the gym in the afternoon. Same thing. Did that for a year and a half. And during that time, my online business went from having 2 clients to having 60 clients. So now all of a sudden I had 60 online clients, the gym, plus my career in the mornings. I was getting up at 5, doing online coaching, going to the community nutrition work, working that till 2, going to the gym, coming home, working till midnight, and then doing the same thing over and over for a year and a half. So, working again my ass off after that. Then it became more profitable for me to chase the online route than to stay at the community nutrition job. So I kicked that off. And ever since then, it's like I've expanded my hours at the gym. I've brought on a staff member. I've continued to do this online coaching, and it's just gotten bigger and bigger. I do a lot of in-person coaching now, whereas in the past I didn't really do all that much in-person coaching. And you just have to keep working and working and working. It never stops. It just gets more and more and more if you want it to grow and if you want it to get better. And this year is going to be the most work that I've ever done in my life. That has to be the heart and soul. If you're slightly lazy, if you're not committed, if you can't focus on tasks, if you can't push forward, it's not going to work out.
No.
You have to work. And no one's going to see that. And you can't brag about that because people are just going to think you're a fucking douche. You have to work, and you have to work humbly, and you have to let the results show in what you present to the people in terms of your facility, in terms of your coaching. You just have to let that shine and let that do the talking, and not let anyone see you toiling away, because that doesn't win you any clients, that doesn't win you any money, that doesn't win you anything, right? That's your choice. You have to do that.
Yeah. And look, I get pretty down on myself occasionally because I'm guilty of being lazy. But
we all are.
Yeah, for sure. And I know I could have done better and all of those sort of things, but I'm not the sort of person that likes living in the past like that. I prefer to just focus on what's next. And I think that's one of the hard parts about owning a business is there's no one there to tell you what's next. There's no one there to prioritize things for you or give you a roadmap for here's how you are successful. Because ultimately, like your business and my business are very different. We run a different model. Obviously, we share a significant amount of core beliefs, but we run a different model for our businesses. We have different goals and things like that. And that's what owning a gym like this is, right? There's no there's no sort of template stamp that works for one of these gyms. As much as like my gym doesn't have my name in it, it's so much an expression of who I am and
That's right.
what my values are. And that's my choice, right? I choose to own a gym that is a values-based business. You know, that's why we're doing this thing with the third gender category. It's why we run an all-female comp once a year. It's why we run 2 charity powerlifting meets a year and raise money every year through powerlifting for charity. Because for me, this is a business that's an expression of who I am. It's an expression of my values, and I love that about it. And it took me a while to come to terms with that not being for everyone. You know, and that's where you need to, if you are going to open a gym, even if you're going to be a trainer in someone else's gym or in a big box commercial gym, you have to know who your audience is, right? The best example for me, and this is a story I'm sure I've told on the podcast before, but certainly one I speak about semi-regularly. For those of you who have been listening long enough, you probably know that I quite like to use the word fuck. And I'm not opposed to using other swear words. I quite enjoy them. And when I first started writing blogs and Facebook posts and stuff like that for PTC back in 2013-14, I was really careful about censoring what I wrote, about not just writing stream of consciousness, but taking out the some of the more crass analogies that I tend to use, and
The Johnisms.
Exactly. And it sort of dawned on me at some point that if you're uncomfortable reading the word fuck, then you're probably not going to be comfortable in my gym. And therefore, you're not my target audience. And that's okay. Like, that was actually the realization, was that it's okay not to shoot for everyone. It's okay to have a niche that works for you, because in today's society, I think, especially in the gym culture, more and more the tendency is moving towards those slightly smaller niche gyms that service a very particular clientele, that charge more than your average big box gym because we provide more, you know. And it's in the intangibles, it's in the community, it's in the support network, it's in the coaching you get. It's all those things that it's not just fancy equipment on, you know, like you've just dropped $1 million on brand new equipment, right? Like the power racks I've got are fucking 8-9 years old at this point. They're rusty in places, they're scuffed, and the paint's, you know, a bit chipped and all those sort of things. And fuck, man, I'm okay with that, because it's still a high quality piece of equipment. It just doesn't look pretty. And, you know, we're in a warehouse that fucking backs onto a quarry. So our gym is constantly full of dust, and, you know, we pay cleaners to do it once a week, and there's fucking spiders everywhere and all that sort of thing. But that's an expression of who I am again, you know. Like I'm not a trim around the edges, prim and proper kind of dude. That's not who I am. And again, it's reflected in the business. So I think the sort of point I'm trying to make here is that if you're going to go down this road, and it's a very distinct road from the road where you would have a big box commercial gym where you rely on 75% of your membership base to never actually step foot in the gym, and selling people on 2-year contracts based on January 1st sales and bullshit like that. And if that's the road you want to go down, you'll probably make a bunch of money, and that's okay. But for me, I wanted a business that I can be happy with walking in the doors every day, a business that I enjoy building, I enjoy putting time and effort into. And that's, again, it's a choice. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm not going to make a lot of money over the years. I'm certainly not making a lot of money now, but I'm working on it. And I'm okay with that because it's what I believe in, you know. And I think that's the question you've really got to ask yourself is this something you're willing to put that work into, you know, to get up early, to go to bed late, without it being glorified, without it being a badge of honor or anything like that. I don't like throwing it in people's faces. I don't like being that sort of person, like you said, because it just makes you seem like a dickhead. And it's very easy from the surface to see what we do through Instagram and social media in general. And I think to look at it and go, oh, like, man, that must be the life. Yeah, like it is, don't get me wrong, but it's not the life you think it is.
Yeah. It's so easy to get sucked into people's social projection of, or social media projection of what their life is, and think that is the life.
The highlights reel, the heavily curated highlights reel.
Yeah, there's man. One thing that I get riled up about is when people say, "Oh, you're so lucky." Like, if you follow me, I travel a lot. I fucking love to travel, and I travel a lot around powerlifting. So I generally go to the places I go to because of powerlifting. I'll go to a comp and I'll make an effort to go see what's in the area.
Yeah.
People are, oh, you get to travel so much, you're so lucky. I'm not fucking lucky.
No.
I've worked my ass off to be able to afford this privilege.
Yes.
And it's not like I'm just taking 4 weeks of holiday. I'm working the entire time.
Yeah.
My business is online. It follows me wherever the fuck I go.
Yep.
Over Christmas, I had my first holiday, my first actual, hey, clients, I'm not working ever.
Yes.
Ever since owning a business was this year. In 6 years, it's the first time I've ever taken time off work, and even then I still worked.
Yes.
And I shouldn't have, but I answered a few messages and emails and things that needed to be done.
But it becomes a default, right? Like, that's the thing that it becomes a way of life, without, again, trying to sound like a wanker. Like, if my girlfriend's at a work event, and obviously things are a little bit different now that I have a child, but like in the past, my girlfriend's out on a Friday night at a work event, I'm probably going to sit at home and work. Like, I might drink a few beers and get a burger and sit on my couch, but I'm just going to default to, like, have Netflix on in the background and do some work, because I enjoy doing it. Like, it just becomes like, oh, I've got some free time, I'll just do this now. Like, I may as well do this now, because otherwise I'm going to have to do it tomorrow. And
we talk about working hard and being laborious, but exactly that. It's a labor of love.
Yeah.
We wouldn't do it if we didn't fucking love it.
Yeah, man. And I did the same thing. I took a bit of proper time off over Christmas, and did the same thing. Still answered a few messages, did a little bit of stuff like that. But it was, like, for me, especially because it's a family thing at that point, like, it's a bit different now that I have a child, and it's more of a choice. And honestly, that's been one of the hardest things I've had. It's only, like, we're only 2.5 weeks into the year, but my life has changed slightly now because my girlfriend's gone back to work. So Tuesday to Thursday, from 9 till 4, I'm a parent, and that's my sole focus. And it's been hard to make the switch, right? Because I'm used to, like, oh, Sim's gone to work, it's now time to fucking sit down and do some work, right? And I, especially initially, I had to be really conscious of being present and playing with my son and doing that stuff, because I wanted to be like, oh, I'm not getting anything done. I feel like I'm stagnant and I'm not getting anything done.
Yeah.
But it's only probably this week that I've managed to properly make that thing where it's like, okay, turn it off. Like, it's not work time now. It's family time. It's parent time. And then what that means is I have to be way more efficient in the time that I use. So when I'm at the gym from 5:30 till 8 in the morning, and then I have to go home and be a parent all day, I have a series of things that I need to do before 8 a.m. because once I hit 8 a.m., I can't do anything. Like, maybe I get an hour when he's asleep or something like that, but even then there's house shit and things like that. So being able to prioritize it has been a really big lesson for me in the last couple of weeks, and I'm sure I'm going to continue to learn that lesson this year, and inevitably things are going to fall through the cracks, and that shit happens when you're a person who is the sole business owner and there's no one else working in the business, like, you become not just the coach, you become the guy that does the back end shit. Like, I edit my own website, I do all our social media, like, all of these things that you don't see, you don't see the fucking tens of thousands of dollars you have to spend a year on rent, and that's just to have a space. That's before you've spent any money on equipment or utilities or marketing or fucking anything. That's everything. just to pay for the building you're in. So I think
toilet paper. I'm always stunned by the amount of toilet paper that I have to buy.
So I've got a subscription with Who Gives a Crap, which is a company that does, like, they donate, I think it's 50% of their profits to building toilets in the third world. But they do it, it's like an automated subscription renewal thing, so I never have to think about it. The only time I have to think about it is like, oh, we're a week out from a comp. We should probably get more toilet paper because we've got a bunch of people hammering the toilets this weekend. But it's certainly like I'm willing to pay a bit extra just so I don't have to fucking think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of work-life balance is, I mean, it's important no matter what you're doing, but when you own a business and it really is your life, it becomes even more important. It's similar to that analogy of like having a really good physique but being a dickhead. You're just a dickhead with a good physique. It's the same thing with business.
Yeah.
It's like, well, congratulations, you've got an amazing business, but you're just a dickhead. Like,
yes,
no one cares how much money you're making if you treat everyone in your family and everyone around you like shit.
Yeah, man.
One thing you touched on just before, and I think it's kind of it holds true with anyone doing this, because as coaches and as business owners, we're automatically going to be quite critical of ourselves. So you said, you think you're lazy and that you could work harder. I mean, we all think that, hey, we could work a little bit harder, and it's like, give yourself credit where credit's due. If you were inherently lazy, if you hadn't put in the work, you wouldn't have what you had. It's just like we're always looking at how can we be better, how can we make this place better.
Man,
we know what we're capable of, and we're always thinking of how we can stretch that capability across a further area and get more out of ourselves.
It's so easy to look at the negatives and miss the positives. I'm real guilty of getting stuck in the day-to-day and forgetting where I've come from and like what I've built. It's only occasionally, and it was actually like, it was the last moment I distinctly remember it was like in September last year when the memories start popping up on my Facebook page of like, this is like all the shots of when we were moving and stuff like that. And I stopped one night, it was like, it's 10 past 8 or something. The gym's empty. I go to flick the lights off and I turn around and fuck, man, I almost cried. Just standing there going like, fuck, it's been 3 years at this point and it seems like a lifetime. And it seems like we're never getting any further down the road I want to get down. But, getting caught up in the day-to-day shit like that, to look back and be like, actually, fuck, man, like we built this from nothing. And it's a tangible thing that exists because of the work that I've put in. It's fucking cool, man. Like it's a really, really cool feeling and something I have to consciously remind myself of, because otherwise it's real easy to see the negatives, I think. Yeah. And I think that's true in anything in life. I think
definitely
it's especially in a realm where, like you said earlier, where it's all social media and positivity and all of that sort of shit. So don't go down this road if you're not willing to do the work and like have it suck for a while, if not quite a while, because it's hard, man. It's not easy at all. I think sorry, what were you gonna say?
Oh no, you go.
So I was just gonna say on a more like specific business side of things, I mentioned earlier that we have a difference in our business model, and we don't necessarily have to pick that apart completely. But the thing for me that I wanted to touch on is the segment of my income, or the business's income, that is based on powerlifting events. So like I think, because I think you and I are a bit different in that, since 2014 we've run somewhere between 8 and 10 powerlifting meets a year, and we now make a significant portion of our income is based on making running events like that. So there's then this thought process around, like I said earlier, setting up the gym in a way that's conducive to hosting really successful meets. It's putting the effort into training, the team and things like that. Like running a powerlifting comp isn't as simple as putting a fucking event on Facebook, downloading Next Lifter on the internet and just running it. Like to run a really well-run, efficient powerlifting meet, and I think we've both been to meets all across the country and in your case the world. Like we know what we're looking at when you see a powerlifting comp, right? You know what a good powerlifting comp consists of. And to be honest, when I ran my first meet, I fucking had no idea what I was doing. Like absolutely no idea. I'd been to a bunch of meets and I knew what I didn't want. And that's how, and look, to be honest, man, that's an extension of how I've built the business. I'd been to a bunch of gyms, I'd been in a bunch of communities, and I knew what I didn't want. and the rest I've just kind of learnt along the way, you know. So yeah, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on the events side of things.
Yeah, man. I mean, right at the start, it was a big part of my income as well, especially with the influence and the advice that I'd received.
Yeah.
It actually happened. It had to happen kind of organically that I stopped running as many meets, and it's purely because of where I moved to. So when I moved the gym the first time into the retail space, my next door neighbor was an
asshole.
antique shop, and he was not the nicest man on the planet. He was certainly not in very much approval of powerlifting events. Long story short, it became quite hard with council and police and stuff getting involved, and it just became less stress was better. So it became easier to run less meets. So I only ever ran sort of 3 meets a year for the last couple of years. Now that we've moved into the new space, I'll probably pick that up again. So like I said, we've got 3 meets in the next month.
Yeah.
But I'll probably only run 6 meets in this year.
Yeah.
But because the gym is really very much so becoming the secondary part of my business rather than the primary part, with online being a bigger focus for me, I guess I've put a little bit less into them. The other thing in my area, so in your area, you've really got not a monopoly, but you've got a very, very strong presence in terms of competition. Running competitions.
And that's by design. Like, that's because that was part of the thing that I wanted to do, was grow the sport. And so part of the vision from early on was running regular powerlifting meets. And I haven't pursued the online avenues in quite the same intensity that you have.
Yeah, so on the Gold Coast, there's a slightly less market for running powerlifting comps, and then in the general region, so Brisbane, Gold Coast in general,
man, with someone like Valhalla,
Scott at Valhalla,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they really have the stronghold, and it's they run fucking good comps. They run great comps. They promote them hard. And I'm not a great meat promoter, and it just, because it's slowly drained from being my focus, that just hasn't been my focus. So I could definitely pick it up.
Yeah, and that's fair enough, man. Like, it tends to be a natural progression with those sort of things, you know. Like you said, you pursued the online avenue. I pursued more of the in-person thing because that's where I wanted to go with things. But the event sort of organizing thing, that kind of comes naturally to me, you know. Like it might look like, if you attend a powerlifting meet at Burleigh, that I stand around and do nothing all day. But I think the hallmark of a good meet director, and one of the things I pride myself on, is the ability to do every job in the room.
Absolutely.
But the real finesse of it comes from not doing any of those. Because you have, and I am incredibly fortunate to be surrounded by a group of people who are willing to regularly give up their Sundays in exchange for nothing more than a burger afterwards. Like, we all go out for burgers afterwards. Maybe I buy a beer for everyone as well, you know? Like, I'm not in a position necessarily to be paying people or anything like that. But none of the people I have ever asked me, nor ever would. I put out a call out, and I don't expect it of anyone. There's no expectation that you become a member of our community and you help run comps. People just naturally volunteer. They say, I want to come and help with this thing. And, you know, I'm lucky to be in that position. But going back to what I said, I think that's where a good meat promoter really flourishes, is the ability to do every job in the room, but to have delegated enough throughout the day to be in a position where you don't have to really do anything. And dude, it's a skill that I've worked hard at, and like I said, built a team around, so that, and it became most evident for me when we ran Ladies of Lifting last year. The night before Ladies of Lifting, it was like 1 a.m. and it's one of our biggest comps of the year, 60 plus women. It's one of the most enjoyable comps we run every year. It's always got a slightly less serious, more enjoyable vibe to it. And so I always look forward to it. It's a long day, but it's a great day. And about 1 a.m. the night before, I woke up and went, oh man, I feel real queasy. And I lay there for a minute and went, oh, it's going to be really unpleasant if I have to run a powerlifting comp in between spews today. And then I got up and I power spewed like I've never power spewed before. And dude, it fucking ruined me. Every 90 minutes for about 8 hours, I was out of bed spewing my life out. it got to 7:30. I'd like set my final. I had to be at the gym by 8:30. I'd set my final alarm, feeling like absolute ass, and I'd said, okay, at 7:30, I either have to get up, shower, and leave the house, or I have to start organising people to do this for me. And I got up and I got in the shower and I turned the shower on and I spewed. And it was like just fucking water and bile. Like it was the most horrific thing ever. And my girlfriend walked into the room and was like, you can't do this today. I was like, yeah, no, I know. So I got out of the shower and I sent Jerry, my business partner, I sent Jess, one of my coaches, and I sent Mike Eicholzer a message. I said, hey guys, I'm fucked. I can't do this today. Here's what I need you guys to be in charge of today. And the comp ran perfectly. And to be honest, man, people have said to me like, oh, were you worried? Were you nervous? I was so fucking sick that I couldn't think about anything else. I barely thought about the comp all day because I was just focused on surviving. But the comp ran perfectly. That's the first comp in several years that, in the years, all the years I've been running meets, that I haven't attended. And it ran without a hitch. And that's because we've developed a group of people who fucking just know how to switch it on, who know how to turn up and do the job. And that shit takes work, man. You can't just fucking develop that overnight. It's
always so heartwarming to see that as well.
Dude,
like
it was...
To oversee your team and be like, fuck, these people care so much about what I've built.
Yes.
And they're willing to support it.
The number of messages I got, like, hey, man, we really missed you today, but fuck, your team did awesome. And, like, it still fucking sends chills down my spine to think that they turned up and they wore that brand that I created with pride, and pride enough to just turn up and do the fucking thing anyway. None of those people got paid for that day. None of that, like, they all got a burger afterwards and that was it. You know, and
so good.
That's the shit that for me lights my fire. It's that being surrounded by a community and a group of people that fucking love the thing you're doing as much as you do, you know, and that's like the community is always going to be the most important part of our gym. You know, I've said it more than once. We could run this gym in 100 square meter garage and we'd still have just the same amount of commitment from our people, because it's not about the tangible building and the fucking equipment and all of those sort of things. It's about something else. And I think for a gym to be successful, it has to have something else, or this type of gym to be successful.
Yes. Yeah,
you have to, like you said, you have to have that community, that vibe to it. I mean, we run a really firm no dickheads policy. I haven't had to kick anyone out yet, but I've certainly told a couple of people they're not welcome back, and I'm okay with that. I think that's it seems counterintuitive to turn business away, and I've spent several years convincing my girlfriend that this is actually the best option, that some people just don't fit. Some people's money's not worth it. That $40 a week that person's paying isn't worth the stress.
And isn't worth the potential, say, $120 a week that you might lose if 3 members leave because you've allowed a dickhead to join the gym.
Exactly.
You know, yeah. I think that's a really positive note to leave on, though, the aspect of community. Because if I had to say what I'm the most proud of with my business journey, with my gym journey, is the fact that when I go to the gym every day and I see different groups of people training together, going out of their way to meet each other at particular times, forming their own groups, and then those groups not being cliquey and separate from the other groups, just working, you know, like with like, times that match up, days that match up, but everyone's still being a family. And when I still train. And when I get to go and train with my people, with the people that I've coached and helped brought up, and they're training alongside me, and I'm an equal with them, and I'm part of the community as well as the leader of the community, that's really fucking cool. Yeah,
dude. It's super powerful. I mean, fucking 5 years, we've had one marriage, or they're engaged, but they met through the gym and they're now engaged and living together overseas. We've had several relationships that have been built out of the gym. Like these things where it's, you know, like it sounds sappy and corny, but it fucking changes people's lives, man. It's and it's not the weight on the bar that's changing people's lives. It's being a part of something people talk about the third place, right? Everyone has work and they have home and they have a third place. Cheers, the TV show, was built on the idea that the bar was the third place. My gym's the third place to a whole group of people that would otherwise be considered fringe. You know, I like to joke that we're all a bit weird and we're all a bit eccentric and a little bit outside the norm, but fuck, man, I'm okay with that. I wear it as a badge of honor. You know, it's something I enjoy. We are not the same as you. We are different, and that's okay. And I think allowing people to find that community, to find that group of people that they relate to, is really, really powerful.
Perfect.
Excellent.
All right. Good chats.
Indeed.
Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Give us 5 stars.
Tell your friends. Leave us a funny review. Maybe we'll read it.
Really
I don't think we've ever actually done it, but maybe we will.
Yeah. All right.
Sweet. Thanks,
See you
guys.
next time.